For this bike ped committee meeting. We have several people who couldn't make it. So Deb and Donna couldn't make it, and Maggie is unavailable as well. So we just sort of have a small group today and a small agenda. So I guess that matches up pretty well. So just so everyone knows, we've got a few members of the public, but this is the March 12th Bicycle and Pedestrian Subcommittee meeting of the Transportation and Parking Commission. And this is being recorded. We'll go on to Northampton Open Media if anybody wants to look at it at another time. And we always start our meetings with public comment for anything that is not necessarily on the agenda. So I see Alex Bowman. If you'd like to unmute, you can. And you can go ahead and give public comment.
Sure. I've been reading the Complete Streets policy, and number one on the Complete Streets policy is safely accommodate pedestrians, bicycles, and when appropriate, transit facilities on every surface street. Well, I understand that's not going to happen immediately for every street. I know we've put in a lot of bike lanes and other accommodations, but who decides the conditions of when we have to make these accommodations actual accommodations? It seems like often the accommodations are only for adults, only for the bravest people, they exclude winter time, or only if you don't need a cane or a other mobility device. We make accommodations for a lot of things out there. We make accommodations for employees with disabilities in the workforce. We make accommodations for children with allergens in school. We make accommodations for folks with hearing impairment at city council meetings, but we don't really set conditions on when those accommodations happen. It's been really frustrating this winter to try to get around on a bike. As I often say, it shouldn't take an act of bravery to get around on a bike. I wrote to the DPW on February 24th, a full week after the storm, thinking, I had given them enough time to take care of making sure that we are meeting our Complete Streets policy and getting safely accommodating. I said, hey, any idea about when the Pleasant Street bike lane will be cleared of snow and ice? And there was no response. But that same day, or maybe even a few days later, I can't remember exactly what it was, I saw crews taking out cold patch to fill potholes. And meanwhile, the bike lanes are sitting full of snow. So I guess I'm curious, what does safely accommodate pedestrians and bicycles mean to the city of Northampton? How are we holding ourselves accountable to that? And is there really nothing that we could have done to do that better? Thanks.
Thanks, Alex. And just a reminder, when we take public comment, we don't discuss or respond, but we can certainly bring items to another agenda. So
Carolyn, can committee members speak to something that's not on the agenda in the public comment period?
Sure, or in other business, yeah.
So I'm Nick Horton. I'm a member of the Bike Ped committee. I'm really was glad to see the pedestrian improvements that were in the plans for the State Street housing development that I believe is being considered by the Historic Commission and the Planning Board. That's an area right now where there's no sidewalk whatsoever, so folks are forced on the other side. And just it seems like it makes a lot of sense for that area to have that accommodation. I've often seen people kind of do strange things to kind of get it around in that area. So I just again wanted to mention that seemed like it was an area for us moving forward on our pedestrian accommodation.
Thanks, Nick. Any other public comments? Okay. Okay.
Carolyn,
Anita.
there is a yes.
Anita, go ahead.
I I pretty much would say what Alex is saying. I'm from the Montview neighborhood, and we're just trying to figure out how we can um, address our difficulty uh, walking safely, being how just to get from here to town. So I'm here to just learn.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay. So like I said, we have, because we're sort of low on numbers, we have just our office planning update. I don't have a lot of updates, but first I want to let everybody know that MassDOT has finally signed the contract for the Greenway expansion, Rocky Hill Greenway expansion from the East Hampton, Northampton shared use path cross country to Route 66, where it will connect up to Ice Pond, and then that through the Ice Pond neighborhood over to Florence Road. We're having a pre-construction meeting next week, so I'll know more about when the contractor thinks that he'll be starting up. It's JL Construction. Related to that, National Grid is actually doing work on the poles and upgrading poles all along that section of the shared use path, New Haven Canal path between Northampton and East Hampton from Lovefield Street to the point at which it goes cross country. So that whole section of path is going to be closed until maybe mid-April. We're going to put something out. National Grid just gave us a more clear idea of those dates and when that's happening, but we're going to put that out in the newsletter, the mayor's newsletter this Friday, so people are aware. I mean, now that we seem to be entering into the beginning of spring, there'll probably be more rides there, but if you can, spread the information to the extent that people out there would need to know that it is going to be disruptive for that period of time when that section of path is closed. They're trying to get through their pole reconstruction before our contractor gets onto the off-road or through the woods section, so that there's no conflict, or that, they're basically done mucking around in the woods, or they're not in the woods, but in the areas that we need to be in for our construction. So, but that should be done by mid-April. Any questions on that before I go into bike share? Go ahead.
I was really impressed with the ability to get the word out on the kind of reconstruction that Donna was magically able to get happen before the winter hit. And I'm hoping we can use those same efforts of kind of getting things to the neighborhood association, working with the Friends of the Manhan, because it's that connection to East Hampton. But I think we've seen how this worked in East Hampton with the maintenance. It's an important part to make sure that we have that. And so this sounds like an important thing to have to get that project not have any blocks.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to, so this is a little bit different in that it's a National Grid project. And so we don't have control over, I mean, they own the strip of land. We just have an easement over it for the shared use path. But definitely good point. We should do a blast to the city council's email so that they can get the message out as well. And yeah, I don't know what's going to happen with with their ability to sort of maintain control of that site, but that's a good point.
Yep.
Okay. I guess moving on, I know Sean had asked for an update on
Looks like Alex has his hand up. I don't know if he wants to speak to that topic.
okay, sure. Alex, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just wondering, was anyone from Northampton coordinating with National Grid about potential detour routes? I know that when I first contacted them, they had suggested a route that was not accessible. So I was just wondering, has the city been coordinating with them, or has anyone else been coordinating with them?
The only coordination we've had from them is saying that they have to close the path, for this amount of time. We don't have, I mean, there's no alternative except for East Hampton Road in that section, in terms of a detour, unless you're, of course, going to backtrack and go up Florence Road and around. Yeah. So it's, a section that's, we don't really have many options.
Is there an established protocol about what happens when we are shutting down what I think are considered transportation networks and how we provide alternatives? Is there any like standard approach on how we do that, or is this just take it as it is?
So the only, I mean, again, the detour is on street. So, in this situation, and again, because we don't own the path, we built the path, but it's on National Grid easement. They control, what and when they do maintenance. And so we don't have, we can't really dictate a protocol or timing of when they're going to be doing work.
Yeah, but I guess when we do projects like the Rotary in at Look Park, we set up detour signs. I think that was only over a weekend, and this is going to be for a whole month. So is there any type of process that we establish to make sure that people, I mean, people may not know the different ways to go or where they have to go around because that is such a convenient way to go, and the other ways are so out of the way.
Yeah, I mean, again, the roundabout was our project. This is not ours. And the only detour that, I mean, they're going to have to put up post signs at each end of those entrances. And that's a long segment, about, it's over a mile from where it comes in at Grove Street, I think, and then to Love Field. And so the only alternative is really on Route 10, for that section.
Okay, thank you.
Carolyn, I have one other question, which is, when did the city learn that National Grid was doing this work?
Over the winter, they told us that they were going to be doing work this year. But they didn't know when, and we asked them to try to do the cross-country work early because we knew that the bike path, that the shared use connector between Route 66 and the the Northampton New Haven Trail was going to be taking place this spring, we were hoping. That's the only guidelines that we could recommend to them, that they please take on that work first before doing. They're going to be replacing poles throughout this whole region. And so they gave us a map saying, here are all the pole locations, and we're starting this year. So we didn't have really any idea of when. And then right before they were about to shut down, they're saying, okay, we're doing this section now till the middle of April, and then we're going to move up. So they're going to keep going north through Williamsburg over the course of the next 6-8 months, and then beyond. So, that was the extent of our communication with them. Okay, so moving on to bike share. So we this year we were open through the winter, which seemed to be pretty good until January, when it really started to get cold and not as many riders were out. But nevertheless, the service was still available, except when it snowed those several times. And then stations were somewhat impeded by snow, especially in this last storm. But we are, as I may have mentioned before, we did receive a grant oddly, I still can't say a lot about the grant because they haven't released us yet to be public. But through that grant, we're going to be able to really focus on generating new memberships, trying to get sponsorships by hiring a local person whose expertise is in marketing and driving up, looking for those sponsorship opportunities. We also have money in the grant to purchase new bikes and do bike station expansions. So that part is moving pretty quickly this spring. We're also hoping to roll out, or the Drop Mobility team is running some raffles this spring, actually. If you go on their website, I think you'll see it. It's geared towards, well, maybe it's not, but they think it's geared towards college students because they're offering to give away, or younger students, they're offering to give away AirPods, I'm sorry. And so they're embarking on several different ways to try to encourage people to sign up, and really working with the campuses to do that as well. So as sort of the weather warms up and it looks like we're going to have more consistent riding weather, there are plans for more events to do sort of big campaigns around bike share and joining bike share and memberships. So any questions on that? I'd be happy to answer. Alex, go ahead.
Are there
Oh,
any
Brett, did you have
public-
something?
Oh,
Sean, sorry, I can't see you. Sean, go ahead.
I was just curious, who sets the monthly membership costs, or just cost to users in general?
So the Drop operations team has set and identified membership based on costs of operation with the team. So we worked through the membership costs. There is a structured membership, so there's some discounts for students. There's also what we refer to as an access pass. So it's $4 a month for people who are income eligible. So we sort of have 3 tiers of memberships, and then, well, actually there's more than that, but the standard membership and the access pass membership were established by Drop with sort of conferring with the committee, bike share committee. Okay,
I'm just curious because I know price-wise it's over twice what it was before for monthly/yearly memberships, and I'm just curious how that's affecting membership numbers and usage.
We don't really know what the impact of that. I think that I haven't done the calculation on the differential between the, Bewegan and Drop, but, we feel like this is we're pretty comfortable in terms of the system costs and making sure that we're not hitting a price point that is obviously going to be detrimental to ridership, but that's something that we'll be looking at. The other piece, and just to go into some more details, the other marketing piece that Drop does is trying to get groups, so employers, to buy for their employees. And so at that point, employers might be eligible to get sort of bulk purchasing discounts for their employees, and that's a different price. So there are sort of within that, there are other price points, but for sort of you and me and anybody else signing up, the basic price is on the web. So Anybody else on the committee before I go to Alex? Okay, Alex, go ahead.
I was just wondering if there's any usership targets, subscription targets, break even point, just any type of information, more information about how it's getting used and which stops are popular, things like that, and how you're approaching the expansion or the areas that you're thinking to expanding to.
Yeah, so there are a couple things. One is, yes, but we actually don't have enough time yet in the system to really understand ridership. Again, we have the old data from the old system about the higher volumes station locations. And then in terms of station expansion, we had a list of expansions before the Wiegand left that we were targeting across the valley based on where we thought there were gaps in ridership or gaps in the system where it would make sense to fill in. So we're starting with those as potential first expansion spots. And then we're going to look at, that's sort of the baseline. And we also need to make sure we're making connectivity to the PBTA line, because that's part of our grant, is to sort of make sure that we're thinking about the bus routes and extending opportunities for people to make those connections. And that's part of our our initial two sets of station expansions that will happen this year.
Is there any publicly available reporting?
Every time we get a monthly report from our vendor, we've been putting it on the web page.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Yep. Okay. So I don't know if there's any other item. I mean, that's basically it for the agenda, except for minutes. I don't know if there's other items that the committee members have that they want to bring up. Go ahead, James.
Yeah, thanks, Carolyn. I would love to know if there's any progress in discussing complete streets. We had a lengthy discussion in January about prompted by DPW Director Donna Lascalia's feeling that we had an unworkable program, and that that the vast majority, maybe more than 90% of street projects that she had to do were hitting up against requirements in complete streets that just couldn't be done unless we turned 10 streets budget into one street and made that one street compliant with our policy, and that she had to keep asking for these exceptions from the Transportation and Parking Commission. But there was a lot of discussion about that. Can you update us? Has anything happened in the last 2 months regarding that issue?
Yeah, so we also had taken the Complete Streets potential language changes to the Disabilities Commission, and they've had several conversations over several meetings, one to bring them up to speed and sort of let them sort of digest and think about how they might want to weigh in on any of these modifications. And so I think we've been to 2 or 3 meetings. They had a subcommittee meeting too, just to better understand the ordinance. And they were going to meet yesterday and then sort of make their final recommendation, but we had a Zoom glitch, so they couldn't meet. And so basically we're waiting for the Disabilities Commission to sort of issue a recommendation, and then it was going to come back. Now I've forgotten where. I don't know if it was formally, I don't think it's been formally introduced to City Council yet. So we were just sort of waiting for that process to happen. in the meantime, you know, taking the comments from TPC and Bike Ped, I have made some recommended language changes to address some of the concerns. So that hasn't really gone anywhere. That's just sort of sitting in the draft pile. So we are waiting for Disabilities Commission to sort of finish their work on it. So
Thanks.
my guess is they had to make a special meeting. I think they're gonna meet next week to make up for the fact that they had a technical glitch last night, and then it'll come back.
Carolyn, is there any reason that we won't be able to see it again before it goes to council?
Yeah, I mean, frankly, I don't think it's anything that needs to be rushed. Because we can certainly bring it back to the next Bike Ped meeting.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
So,
Thank you.
okay. Yeah. Okay. Brett, you had your hand raised?
No, I was gonna
Oh.
tag along with James's suggestion to bring it to here. Seems like
Okay.
it seems to me that that's our mandate, right? Our mandate as a subcommittee is to recommend, is to give guidance to the TPC on bicycle and pedestrian matters in the city, and I'm not sure there's anything more important than the complete streets policy. So if we're not making a recommendation, then I'm shaking my head as to why.
Okay. Thanks. Sean?
Yeah, thanks. I apologize for not attending or watching the recording of the TPC meetings, but what is their take, since it most affects their work and powers, what is their take on the recommended changes to the language?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there certainly was, you know, conversation about how far and what, you know, a debate about whether to eliminate the, you know, approval criteria or approval vote from TPC. I think there's a discussion about how, you know, that again, sort of, it's a little bit inconsistent to have one committee determine, you know, a budgetary matter that city council ultimately has control over. But I'd have to go back. I don't think that there was consensus really based on those changes. I think there was an interest in making some text changes and wanting some more clarification. But ultimately, you know, I think the issue is that whatever it is, there really are instances where, you know, there are right-of-way constraints that would require takings or, you know, extensive excavation into steep slopes in order to widen an area to accommodate sidewalks. In particular, we're really mostly talking about sidewalk, creation of sidewalks versus the materials of sidewalk that should be used. So I think that there certainly was discussion about that and understanding that there just are situations in which the policy can't be completely complied with. And so the question is, what do you do in those instances? And I think that my takeaway from the conversations was that there needs to be sort of more specific guardrails or language around what makes sense for sort of a by right exemption, if you will, and what special circumstances, like are there short streets where it doesn't make sense, you know, a short dead end street where it might not make sense to create a whole piece of sidewalk infrastructure when you might be able to accommodate a shared street situation or something like that. So but nothing definitive. All right, so the only thing that I really have left are minutes from January. So if somebody wants to make a motion about the minutes.
Motion to approve January minutes?
Second.
Brett, seconds.
Second,
Okay, so I'll have to do a roll call because we're hybrid. So I'll start with Nick.
approve,
James,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
and I guess I'll say yes too. So that's unanimous for the minutes. Any other items before we close out? Brett, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't have in good format to share with the group or anybody else at the moment, but I saw something on Discord this morning that was, I believe, a survey of type from Pioneer Valley Planning Commission, updating their bicycle and pedestrian recommendations in the valley. And maybe we should add that to our next agenda, to even if it's just to disperse to people watching on YouTube or something. But maybe we can do more than that.
Yeah, so they have a draft plan they're working on, a pedestrian bike ped plan that's available from their website. But
Seems like we might want to tag into that in some way, have
Okay.
feedback for them, or get the word out that they're looking for feedback from others.
yeah, sure. Great. Sean?
Yes, I remembered looking back, there was a third item on the agenda for today, strategize shared use path maintenance, continued discussion. And I know we've talked about that a little bit. I was curious, do you know if DPW has at all looked into putting out contracts to get assistance on that, since it seems like manpower is the limiting factor there? They have the budget, they just don't have anyone to spend the budget on. Do you know if they've looked into contracting that out to get assistance?
I don't know for sure. I can certainly check with Donna, and she'll, presumably be back at the next bike ped meeting, so can discuss then. I can certainly find out. My guess is she's not put out to bid. I'm pretty sure she has not put any bid out for this season, and I don't know what the plan is, but we can certainly have that conversation when she's back at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Alex, one quick before we adjourn, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say it's really disappointing to have the person who's really responsible for maintaining trails and have a meeting that's once every 2 months now not present for this meeting. So it really means we lose a lot of time and ability to improve things. I really wish that this could be a priority, or we could reschedule this so that those people that are stakeholders and executors could be present to make sure that we are using our time more wisely. Thanks.
I'll just follow up on that Donna doesn't have to be here to have received the message. She was at the other meeting, so the message hasn't changed. It's just a matter of whether or not whether it makes sense from her operational standpoint to be able to do that. So I wouldn't suggest that just because she can't come to a meeting that there isn't the ability to record and process and think about strategies to address public comment and comments from this committee.
It sounds like we
so-
aren't having a full discussion about this topic at this meeting. Is that true?
full discussion about sort of maintenance. Yeah, I mean, we had discussed it at 2 subsequent meetings, and I didn't know if there was any other items besides what's already been discussed. I mean, I don't think that, I think we had public comment and we had committee comment about this from at the other meeting. So if there's new information, I think that makes sense. But, as time goes on, it doesn't mean the comments are thrown in the wastebasket, right? They're still collected, they're still out there, there's still a concern for the community. And, we know that there's, we don't have the operational capacity to do that in-house at the moment. And so I think the idea is there has, if whether or not we can farm that out, and if that is an option, that's has to be considered. So I'm not sure that we need to continue the conversation by rehashing the same points that were made over the last 2 meetings, but happy to hear if there's anything else or any ideas about other ways to address the maintenance responsibilities.
Well, I certainly hear that it's not worth anybody's time to bash their head against the wall in the same way that we've done before. However, the problems still remain, so I think we should still talk about possible solutions until we brainstorm something that does stick on the wall and work.
Yeah.
Whether that's city, sponsored, either in-house or hiring out, or whether that's citizen groups, but something or something we haven't thought of yet. But I feel like it's an issue that we should continue to. I mean, it seems like it's so pertinent to our topic as a subcommittee that it seems like until the issues are more resolved than they are, we should continue to talk about it.
Yeah, I wasn't suggesting we shouldn't talk about it. I'm just saying, I think that you're right. There has to be sort of this brainstorming. Are there other ways to address it besides, internally being able to hire people to do the work? And also because it takes extra time and extra money because of the variability of the trails, where there's fencing in some places that doesn't allow the same kind of equipment to go in, like a brush hog, and just do, wholesale clearing along the trails, that it does take some more handwork than, and therefore more time and money. So I absolutely agree that there's no solution yet, and that we should still brainstorm potential solutions. I was just suggesting that, we know what the issues are, and that we don't need to recount the issues, but more that we need to sort of think about solutions. So maybe that's the homework for next time. If there are any other, we talked about, I think we talked about the concerns or the issues even in capacity with volunteer groups. And so certainly holding a group like Friends of Northampton Trails to as our maintenance crew is not the appropriate solution, nor is there capacity there either. Maybe there's some hybrid that needs to be developed.
Yeah, one thought that just came to mind is if the fences are a problem, should somebody look at which fences are absolutely necessary and which could be removed to facilitate cleaning, and make that prioritization choice of fence versus maintenance?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. I mean, yes, we could look at that. I think people are probably of it. I think we would need to look at it from a technical safety standpoint. Some people feel safer with fences in certain locations or, you know, guardrails, I should say, because that's the biggest issue. It's not necessarily, you know, like a privacy fence. And for example, when we redid the path, the section just this past winter, we were getting emails. We got a couple of emails from people asking if we were going to put fencing up in a section that never had fence before. And we didn't have the budget for it. Also, the engineers said it wasn't necessary. So I'm just putting it out there that, you know, I think we really have to, if we're going to do that, we really should look at it from a technical standpoint as opposed to thinking about it in terms of people's preferences about what feels comfortable.
Yeah, sure, of course. I mean, that's why I said, identify the ones that are engineers say are necessary, and
Yeah.
then anything else is in that pool of preference versus preference, which is a never win battle, but maybe some of those make sense as they age to not replace them and to dismantle them instead.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Carolyn, would you be able to provide an update via email perhaps to us regarding Donna's response to her looking into contracting out before the next meeting?
Sure.
So going into the next meeting, we know her response and maybe we can think about how to respond to her response and, build off of it or problem solve what issues that might further entail.
Yeah, sure. I can do that.
Thank you. Also,
Yeah.
I see Alex has his hand up again.
Okay, go ahead, Alex. I wasn't sure if that was from last time or not.
Yep, I just wanted to say that there was a pretty clear delineation between the paths maintained by DCR versus the paths maintained by the city. And I know some of that has to do with DCR having different staff, but I think it's also interesting that DCR doesn't use salt while Northampton does, but it seemed like Northampton had much more of an ice issue. So I think one of the key things has been the curbs that have been making it very difficult for the city to maintain a real 10-foot service instead of, it gets encroached on by that ice, especially at the Jackson Street overpass. And I think that moving forward, we should try to avoid putting curbs on or especially steep curbs on rail trails. And also try to make sure that we are plowing the entire width. And I know curbs make that much harder to do. So that's something I noticed having spent 150 miles of travel on the trails this winter.
Okay, thanks. All right, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second? Any seconds?
Second that.
Thanks. Okay, Nick,
Yes.
James,
Sure.
Brett,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
and I vote yes. So thank you very much, and we'll see you next month. Take care.